If you go, where shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Imagine being one of Hollywood's most beautiful and talented actresses, yet being known as the most difficult and horrifying person to work with. Vivien Leigh, star of Gone with the Wind, was precisely that. A Jekyll and Hyde figure who could charm the world one moment and descend into terrifying rages the next. But behind her erratic behavior lurked a devastating truth that would only be fully understood years later. A schoolmate recalled, "We'd see a completely different girl, moody, silent, petulant, rude, even hysterical. None of us understood it, not even the schoolmistresses." As Leigh pursued her acting career, she set her sights on the role that would define her, Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. With what Laurence Olivier called demonic determination, she pursued the part. She told her American agent, "I've read the book and I am Scarlett O'Hara." Her persistence paid off when she impressed producer David O. Selznick with a wild screen test. However, the filming process was a nightmare for cast and crew alike. Leigh worked grueling 16-hour days, often twice as long as her co-star Clark Gable, for a fraction of his pay. The production dragged on for months, cycling through 3 different directors. Leigh's behavior on set was becoming increasingly erratic. She would swing from charming and cooperative to furious and contemptuous in the blink of an eye. The set of Gone with the Wind was notoriously chaotic. The first director, George Cukor, was fired 3 weeks into production, replaced by Victor Fleming. Fleming later took a break due to exhaustion, and Sam Wood stepped in temporarily. This constant change in direction led to confusion and tension among the cast and crew. Leigh's dedication to her role was intense. She insisted on wearing a tight corset to achieve Scarlett's 17-inch waist, often fainting on set due to the constriction. The famous barbecue scene at 12 Oaks was filmed during a heat wave, with temperatures reaching 90 degrees. Leigh, along with other actresses in heavy period costumes, suffered greatly in the heat. The film's production was also marked by racial tensions. The black actors, including Hattie McDaniel, were segregated from the white cast members during breaks. Leigh, however, reportedly defied these rules, often sitting with McDaniel during lunch. This act of solidarity, while seemingly small, was significant given the social climate of the time. It showcased Leigh's willingness to challenge the status quo and her respect for her fellow actors, regardless of race. Both Leigh and Gable were convinced this film would be a huge flop. They couldn't have been more wrong. Adjusted for inflation, it remains to be the highest-grossing film of all time.
War, war, war. This war talk's spoiling all the fun at every party this spring. I get so bored I could scream.
Leigh's portrayal of Scarlett O'Hara is still considered one of the most iconic performances in cinema history. It's worth noting that Leigh's commitment to the role was certainly all-consuming. She spent months perfecting Scarlett's southern accent, working with a dialect coach to capture the nuances of the Georgia drawl. The actress also underwent a strict diet and exercise regimen to maintain Scarlett's slender figure throughout the lengthy shoot. Leigh's perfectionism extended to every aspect of her performance, often requesting multiple takes of scenes to get them just right, much to the frustration of her co-stars and crew. Her performance earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress, but even this moment of triumph was tainted. On the way home from the ceremony, her husband, Laurence Olivier, consumed by jealousy, allegedly grabbed Leigh's Oscar and could barely keep himself from striking her with it. This incident foreshadowed the tumultuous years to come. Vivien Leigh was born Vivien Mary Hartley in Darjeeling, India in 1913. Her father was a British officer in the Indian Cavalry, and her mother was rumoured to have Armenian or Indian ancestry, a detail Leigh would keep secret to succeed in Hollywood. From a young age, she dreamed of becoming an actress, confiding in her schoolmates about her ambitions. Even as a child, there were signs of this tumultuous personality that would later define her. A schoolmate recalled, "At first we credited it to longing for her family. They were living out in India, you know. But as we got to know her better, we realize that she was quite happy to be at school and didn't seem to miss her family at all. Knowing what we know today about these things, one would definitely have to say that Vivien was a disturbed young girl, disturbed in some way that she had no control over. At the age of 6, Leigh was sent to a convent school in England, where she wouldn't see her mother for 2 long years. This early separation may have contributed to her later emotional instability. Despite these challenges, Leigh's determination to become an actress never wavered. Leigh's rise to fame was meteoric. At just 19, she married Herbert Leigh Holman, a lawyer 13 years her senior. She gave birth to her daughter Suzanne just 10 months after the wedding. But motherhood didn't deter her from pursuing her dreams. At 22, she landed a role in the scandalous play The Mask of Virtue. Her performance received standing ovations and critical acclaim, launching her into Hollywood's top tier. It was during this time that she had met the man who would change her life forever, Laurence Olivier. Their passionate affair was stuff of Hollywood legend. Both were married with young children, but they couldn't resist the pull of their attraction. Leigh boldly introduced herself to Olivier backstage after one of his performances, boldly kissing him on the neck as she sauntered across the room. Their chemistry was instant and electric. As part of their divorce agreements to be together, they both had to give up primary custody of their children, a sacrifice that would haunt them both. This decision speaks volumes about the intensity of their relationship and the lengths they were willing to go to be together. As Leigh's career progressed, her behavior became more and more unpredictable. During the filming of A Streetcar Named Desire, she inhabited the fractured psyche of Blanche Dubois so completely that she admitted it tipped her into madness. Her performance was brilliant, earning her a second Oscar, but the toll on her mental health was severe. Leigh's co-star in Streetcar, Marlon Brando, later revealed that he had wanted to pursue an affair with her, but refrained out of respect for his friendship with Olivier. This anecdote highlights the complex web of relationships and temptations that Leigh navigated in Hollywood. On the set of Elephant Walk in 1953, Leigh's behavior reached new and alarming levels. She became paranoid, suffered from insomnia, and even experienced hallucinations. Her breakdown was severe enough that she was replaced by Elizabeth Taylor. During the flight back to Los Angeles, she became so distressed that she attempted to escape the plane mid-flight, terrifying her fellow passengers. But it was during the filming of Ship of Fools in 1965 that Leigh's behavior reached its most shocking point. In an assault scene, she struck her co-star Lee Marvin so hard with a high-heeled shoe that it left a permanent scar on his face. This incident effectively ended her film career. Leigh's unpredictable and often violent behavior made her one of the most feared actresses in Hollywood. Directors and co-stars alike dreaded working with her, never knowing which version of Vivien they would encounter on any given day. She could be sweet and charming one moment, then fly into a rage the next, screaming at crew members and assaulting her co-stars. Her marriage to Olivier, once the stuff of Hollywood dreams, crumbled under the weight of her instability. In 1956, while touring Europe for a production of Titus Andronicus, Leigh had a breakdown that proved to be the final straw for Olivier. She flew into a rage and beat him with a wet towel, leading him to throw her across the room. Shortly after, he left her for actress Joan Plowright. Olivier later reflected on their relationship, saying, "Throughout her possession by that uncannily evil monster, manic depression, with its deadly, ever-tightening spirals, she retained her own individual canniness, an ability to disguise her true mental condition from almost all except me, for whom she could hardly be expected to take the trouble." But what was behind Leigh's terrifying behavior? The truth, only fully understood years later, was that Leigh was battling severe bipolar disorder. In an era when mental health was poorly understood and heavily stigmatized, Leigh suffered without proper treatment or support. Her agent described her episodes. She'd become furious, and her voice would turn hard, rasping, contemptuous. But her eyes were the worst. They would transform into the cold eyes of a stranger. After these fits, Leigh would black out having no recollection of her actions and feeling incredibly afraid, embarrassed, and remorseful. John Russell Taylor, Leigh's biographer, noted a peculiar sign that heralded the onset of her manic episodes. When a bout of mania was coming upon her, Vivien's first action, entirely unconscious, was to start systematically taking off all of her jewelry, rings, bracelets, necklaces, earrings, everything, and laying them down on a table. She would start compulsively cleaning something, anything. The treatments available at the time were primitive and often harmful. After a particularly severe breakdown, Olivier felt he had no choice but to place Leigh in an asylum for 3 months, where she endured multiple painful sessions of electroshock therapy. The burns on her temples from these treatments were a visible reminder of her inner turmoil. Leigh's bipolar disorder also manifested in other ways. She experienced intense, uncontrollable intimate urges, leading her to engage in risky behavior. She was known to have affairs with strangers, taxi drivers, and delivery men in an attempt to satisfy her desires. She suffered from extreme insomnia and struggled with basic impulse control. At times, she would engage in bizarre behavior. Once, she rented a car and became so upset by its color that she demanded to have it repainted. She insisted on taking her Renoir and Picasso paintings with her everywhere she went. During a European tour, she even wandered into a public park without any clothes on. Despite her inner turmoil, Leigh continued to work, driven by her passion for acting. But each role took its toll. After a disastrous performance in the stage musical Tovarich in 1963, where she blanked on lines, sang songs too fast, and assaulted her co-stars on stage, it was clear that Leigh's condition was deteriorating. Yet, even in this chaos, her talent shone through. She won a Tony Award for her performance. Leigh's struggle with bipolar disorder was compounded by her battle with tuberculosis. She was diagnosed in 1944, and while doctors thought she had recovered, the disease would eventually return with devastating consequences. Even through her personal struggles, Leigh remained committed to her craft. She once said, "I am not a film star. I am an actress." Being a film star is such a false life, lived for fake values and for publicity. This statement reveals her disdain for the superficial aspects of Hollywood and her dedication to the art of acting. As Vivien Leigh once said, "When I get totally depressed and I'm really run down, I'm like a thing, an amoeba, at the bottom of the sea. I stop everything then, and only my friends can pull me up." These words, spoken in 1960, offer a glimpse into the depths of her struggle with bipolar disorder, a battle that would define her life both on and off the screen. In the summer of 1967, her tuberculosis returned with a vengeance. Tragically, Leigh's life was cut short at the age of 53. She collapsed and died alone in her bedroom, where her partner Jack Merivale discovered her just too late.